Hi guys, a bit of a quick walkthrough video for you today. Today I want to show you how to convert your houseplant from soil to another substrate such as leca or pon. I'm going to use pon today. I'll cover what that is in just a moment if you have no idea, but it will work for both. So the process is the same, the only difference is the substrate that you switch it to. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is peel this off. All this is simply paper from when I bought the plant. That's why the plant is not looking its best. It's because it's in soil. So my watering style is semi-hydro, which is obviously what we're going to switch this to today. It's actually the reason why this plant isn't doing very well, because I'm not used to watering a plant and leaving it without any water in the meantime. So that's why it looks like this, but it's fine, because today we're going to fix that. So the first thing we need to do is take all of the substrate off this plant. As you can see, it's in a regular pot. Now, a bit of friendly advice before you do this. The best way to do this is to actually deprive your plant of water for a little bit so that the soil is actually dry and it is due a watering. That way the soil will come off much quicker. I'm going to place a mat down to catch all of the soil that we're going to take off. I'm going to very gently just pull this out of the pot. So the pot's actually come clean off in my case. And now we can hopefully, very easy, just massage off all of the substrate. Now this is a hanging plant or vining plant, Monstera siltepecana. It can be grown up or down, but as such, this plant is actually made of many cuttings. It's not as simple as perhaps what the plant that you're going to convert is, and it's just one plant. This is technically a few plants, so it might be a little bit easier, it might be more tricky, it really depends. But all I'm going to do is very gently just massage my fingers through all of the roots. I can pull off the dead leaves and debris, etc. whenever I see it. That's absolutely fine. There's a yellow leaf there, because we're not going to want these anyway. The aim is to get as much of this substrate off as humanly possible. And already we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. That's almost as much as we can get off without the assistance of the next step, which is going to be rinsing. I do notice I have a dead root there, so I'm going to just make sure that's separate, possibly from underwatering. The rest of the roots look fine though. I'm very quickly going to dispose of this soil because in my house I do not use it. I do not need it. If you feel you want to use it, that's absolutely fine, but I'm going to get rid of mine very quickly now by picking up the mat and taking it outside. Your plant hopefully looks a little bit like this. You can see there's hardly any substrate on the root. It's not completely free, but most of it has gone. But what we now need to do is rinse off the rest to get as much of this remaining soil off as humanly possible. I'm going to do this off camera just for ease, but I'm going to run it under not freezing cold water, not really warm water, just slightly tepid water under the tap. So our end result from doing that rinsing is as follows. So when I did the rinse, I did the very same technique I did to remove the soil. I just gave the roots a very gentle massage over the tap water. Tap water is all I used. I don't think you need to use anything else. Let's not overcomplicate it. It's just about removing the soil from the roots. So here's a very realistic result of what these roots are going to look like. Do not expect to see really creamy white roots. Most of the time, when roots have grown in soil, you are going to get left with this brown staining. It doesn't mean to say you didn't get everything off. It's just how the soil affects the roots, essentially. So this is completely fine. If you have not got every speck of soil off, please do not worry. It is absolutely fine. Arguably, there is some tiny little pieces left closer towards the roots, but generally speaking, this is the result that we're left with. This is the result that we want. So this plant is now fully prepared to transition into our other medium. So let's pop this plant down a second. The best way to convert these plants into pon in this case, or even leca, is to use a self-watering pot, in my opinion. Do you have to do it? No. You can use a regular plant pot with a saucer, water into the saucer and leave some extra water there, that's fine. That's not how I prefer to do this. So my preferred way is to use a self-watering pot, which is essentially a pot with a means of delivering a continuous low-level supply of water to the roots of your plant. I have two different plant pots to show you. They are from two different brands. I do use them both. They have their pros and cons. That's a separate video. But this here is a self-watering plant pot by a brand called Lechuza. It basically features, and it doesn't have to be this brand, loads of different brands on Amazon can do this. They're very cheap. Basically, we have an outer pot, which is where the water is going to sit. It's probably going to end up sitting about here. And this is the part of the plant pot that the plant will actually be planted into. It is raised because it's going to sit just above the water reservoir in the pot when it is assembled. It also has, this one is dirty because it is used, but it's fine. This has a little bit of cord in the bottom, and what that does is it will wick water from the bottom of the reservoir of the pot up onto the roots of your plant. We also have here a watering meter to tell you basically how much water is left. This is why this is so much easier. So when it's assembled, it just looks like any other plant pot, except it has a little watering meter. The other kind of brand I love to use, and it is much larger, this brand is called Elho. It is basically the exact same thing. You see a lot of the similar hallmarks that you would with any other self-watering plant pot. So you still have the watering meter at the top here, where it's got min and max. You still have the insert here, and you do have a reservoir at the bottom. No cord in this one, but I assure you it works just as well. There is also an outer pot. Now the cool thing about this brand is that these outer pots can be many different colors and you can actually switch them. Whereas the other brand, Lechuza, these are more designed to go together and it would be more difficult to switch them out. So if you want more versatility, I would say this brand, especially with the sizing of their pots. I'm just going to keep this insert for now. I'm going to check if all my roots fit in here. Now this one cannot probably be in here for long, because I would personally say that these roots pretty much fill this reservoir, but for the sake of this video today, I am going to plant this plant into here. So once it's in, it's going to be sat like that. Then we're going to have it in self-watering, and it's going to be a very cute little hanging plant. Obviously, it will probably look better than what I just showed you. So, the substrate. Again, this can be leca or even something else like pon. This is pon. Full disclosure, this happens to be my brand of pon. You can use your own. I will leave the link to mine in the description, but you can do whatever you want. This is what I'm using. So this is by Nurturesystem, and it is number 8, NurturePon. Essentially, it looks a little bit like this. It is a coarse grade gravel. My brand is a little bit coarser than other brands, just because I find not every plant tends to like a finer blend. Again, completely up to you. That's what I'm using. I'm going to line the bottom of this pot with about 1 inch or so of the pon. If you're using leca, do the same with leca. If you're using your own mix of pon, then use your own mix of pon. But as this is a very small plant and a very small pot, it does not need a lot. I'm going to put a tiny bit more in, like that. Now it can get messy, but I promise you it's not as messy as soil, so. Right, I now want to get my plant. I seem to have a rogue cutting, so I'm going to find that. Put that back down where it should go. And I'm going to make sure, in this case, that the plant is positioned how I would like it to be. Obviously, if you don't have a cluster of cuttings as a plant, then you probably don't need to do this. But in a general sense, just arrange your plant so that you know that you are quite happy with it. That will probably do for me. Something a little bit like that. I'm then going to gently push down my roots into the pot, and I'm going to plant it just as you would any other plant in any other substrate. It makes no difference, guys, at all. It's exactly the same as just planting a plant. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure on it because these roots are very springy. I'm going to hold on to my plant, and I'm going to fill in the rest of the space now and finish planting the plant in the pond. PON is completely reusable, by the way. It's another reason why I quite like to use it over other substrates. I find it not even anywhere near as messy. And I just find it extremely useful for my watering style, especially in a self-watering pot. I also find there are less chances for gnats than what there are in regular soil. So this is the potted plant we have so far. That's the hard part, completely finished now. It is essentially potted. So next thing we do is we pop the insert into the outer pot, like such. And there it is. The only thing we need to do now is to water or to feed it. Now, I have my recommendations. Full disclosure, they are my products. I will link these in the description, but the two products I'm going to use today are Nurturesystem No. 1 and Nurturesystem No. 3. Number 1 is PowerGrow. That is an all-in-one fertilizer specifically built for semi-hydro plants. However, you can use it with soil. You just use half the dilution that is listed on the packaging. This here is Nurturesystem No. 3 Rapid Recovery. The whole purpose of this is to boost the root system. So I'm going to combine the two together. You don't really need to. You can just go in my case, with Nurturesystem No. 1. However, I just fancy being a bit fancy today for the video, and we're going to do both. So, I'm going to get my pipettes out. We'll start with number 3. Just to make sure that if we have disturbed the roots, we can quite easily give them a head start on growing extra roots. And to be honest, I don't really want this plant in this pot forever. I would like to see it out of this pot. So that's a reason I'm using that. And then of course, for fertilization, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to fill this with water. Now, whether you're using fertilizer, water, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. The next step is absolutely the same. So what I want to do is I want to water through all over the surface of the plant. It's very important because this substrate is very dry and there's no water present yet. So I want to water all through the top, nice and slowly, whilst watching the water meter on this pot. Obviously, if you do not have a self-watering pot, then you could maybe just rinse some water through, wait for that a little bit, and then pop it back in your saucer, and then add some extra water and leave it sat. That's absolutely fine. Doesn't really matter. The process is honestly the same. I just prefer self-watering. Now, I've put a little bit extra in there. From experience, that's fine, but I don't recommend that you do the same. Just keep it to the water line. That's absolutely fine. All right, let's get a little bit tidied up and we can show you the final result. Here is the finished result. It is potted up and it is in a self-watering pot. If you want to clean the pot, you can simply lift it out, and that's all very easy done. This will keep water for, depending on your environment, it could be up to a week, it could be longer, it really depends. Again, this is not absolutely necessary, this self-watering pot. I just personally think it is the best way in order to have a plant collection where everything's neat and tidy and you don't have to worry about it. Self-watering pots, in my opinion, are an investment. It's not something you have to make right away. Buy one, try one out, see if it's for you. Alternatively, just have a catch pot and keep that full of water. But that is it, guys. Same process for leca as well. Personally, in a household environment without any kind of cabinets or supplementation, I think pon is better. That is why I use it. But if you're in an environment where leca works for you, that's absolutely fine. Again, completely the same process, no difference at all. So that is today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy converting. In terms of the aftermath, if anyone has any questions, you know, what will happen to this plant? There's a possibility it might lose a leaf or two. In my experience, I doubt it. I think if you feed it well and you supplement it like I have, it's probably going to be absolutely fine. Some leaf drop is normal, but I promise it's just acclimation. It's the same thing when you bring in a plant into your home that is new, maybe you've shipped it in and it's fresh. It's literally just acclimation. So don't worry about it. It is absolutely fine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful. Any links that you may need are in the description of this video. And I guess that's it, guys. Happy planting, and hopefully I'll see you soon.